Hey guys, so today I have a review for The Ex Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon, and I saw the Bookables talk about this in her recent reads video, and since she talked about it, I immediately was interested in it, and I was able to get an e-arc from NetGalley, and I read it in just a couple of days and really ended up loving it. So I just wanted to give a quick little review because it's actually due to be released today, so y'all can go out and get a copy of this if the review sounds at all interesting to you. So The Ex Talk is an adult contemporary rom-com style book. It's actually set in Seattle, and our main character Shay is like 30 years old, and she works as a producer for a public radio show. And public radio has been like her whole life. She's always loved it. Like as a kid growing up, it was what bonded her and her dad. But she's always wanted to be a host, and even though she's been at this radio company for 10 years, she's always just been a producer. Well, the station is struggling, and so they're trying to come up with ideas for like a new show that could get new buzz and really help them out. And she comes up with the idea to do like a relationship show, but instead of having the two hosts be a couple, have them actually be exes. So they all love this idea, but the only hitch in this is that they decide her ex is actually going to be her coworker who she doesn't really get along with, and they've actually never dated. So it's kind of like the fake dating trope, but they're like, they pretend to be exes on this radio show and like just talk about relationships, etc., all of that, but from the perspective of a couple who has broken up and has remained friends, which is entirely not true. So of course along the way they have to get to know each other because they're pretending to be each other's exes, and I just really, I don't know, the story really worked well for me. And it's different too because I feel like I don't have a single relatable thing with myself and the main character of Shay, but I just still felt like Shay was such a real character, and I was able to enjoy her perspective so much. Like I said, even though I didn't have like anything in common with her, I was still able to really enjoy her story. And Dominic is the male lead in this story, and he is just kind of like aloof seeming guy at first, and she really does not like him because he's a little bit pretentious. He's newer to the station, and she just kind of thinks he's a bit of a know-it-all, and he's all into journalism and like serious pieces. And so for him, he's not really like on board with this idea at first because he really wants to be taken seriously as a reporter, and so he kind of just seems like ugh in that way. But as they get to know each other and fall for each other, it is just so good and so cute. Their chemistry is just amazing, and I ended up really enjoying this one. Also, an aspect of this book that I really did enjoy, which has actually been a theme in the last few books that I've read, but there was a very strong like pro-feminist vibe throughout this whole thing. There is like a misogynistic character, and they kind of talk about him a few times and just how he doesn't even realize how he's being sexist and against women, and it just kind of like breaks down like the unknown bias you can have in terms of gender and gender roles, and especially towards Shay, who has been working at the station for like 10 years, and she should be really well respected and she should have moved up, but like a part of that is because she's just not as respected by her boss because she's a female. So I really loved that element to the story as well. And like I said, I've been reading a lot of books recently that have had that, and I am definitely a fan of it. So yeah, overall this was just a really good contemporary adult romance. If it at all sounds interesting to you, I definitely would recommend you giving it a shot. And also, I feel like this would make a really good audiobook. Like, I'm actually curious to know how they do the radio elements, and I really want to know if the audiobook made like the jingle for their show, because all of the shows like have a little opening jingle. I mean, I would hope that the audiobook would have that included, but I really want to hear it, so I may like find a way to borrow it from my library and just like fast forward to the parts where they have like the radio excerpts from it. That is actually going to wrap up my review for The Ex Talk. Like I said, would recommend if you like adult contemporary romance. I just thought it was so enjoyable to read, and it only took me a few days, so I really was just hooked on this story right from the start. So that is all that I have for today's review, but thank you so much for watching, and happy reading.